For the record, I just want to note that John Borofsky is attending remotely. With that, then the first agenda item is the agenda check. Is there anybody have anything to want to do about the agenda this evening? If not, then we'll move to items from board members and the general manager. Mindy.
Nothing for me.
John B.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to Frank and staff for the memo regarding the equipment replacement scheduling that we talked about last month. I appreciate the memo, and it looks like we're sitting in good shape on that. So thank you for the work on that.
Sonia.
Right. Well, I do have something very special tonight. Frank was recognized by the Lane Council of Governments for his leadership and service, and was unfortunately not able to accept the award. So I contacted Brenda from LCOG and asked her to give me her lovely speech. So I'm going to read it really quickly and then present you with the award. If that's all right with you.
Absolutely.
All right. So some careers are measured in years, others are measured in impact. Tonight, we recognize a leader whose public service has strengthened not only an organization, but an entire community, Frank Lawson. Frank will retire in the spring of 26 after a decade as CEO and general manager of the Eugene Water and Electric Board, Oregon's largest customer-owned electric utility, and more than 30 years of technical and management leadership spanning engineering, operations, finance, customer service, and strategic planning. Since becoming general manager in 2016, Frank has led an organization of approximately 500 employees, serving nearly 200,000 people with electricity and water across Eugene metropolitan area and the lower McKenzie River Valley. Utilities are not abstract institutions. They are the lights in our homes, the water from our taps, and the infrastructure that quietly sustains daily life. That responsibility requires both precision and heart. Frank has carried it with steadiness, integrity, and deep technical excellence. A registered professional engineer and graduate of Oregon State University with an MBA to complement his engineering background, Frank brings both the analytical rigor and thoughtful leadership to his role. What truly distinguishes him, however, is his ability to bridge worlds, to speak the language of field crews, engineers, finance professionals, elected officials, and customers with equal clarity and respect. Colleagues describe his open communication style and his willingness to ask difficult questions, not to challenge for the sake of it, but to improve. He has taken process improvement and cultural evolution as personal commitments, helping guide a more than 100-year-old municipal utility forward while honoring its legacy. Under his leadership, EWEB has strengthened infrastructure planning, enhanced system reliability, upheld strong financial stewardship, and maintained the public's trust. His tenure reflects careful guardianship of both resources and relationships. And as Frank prepares for his next chapter in retirement, we know that while he may step away from the daily demands of leading a major public utility, the impact of his leadership will continue in the systems he strengthened, the culture he shaped, and the people he mentored along the way. Outstanding public career is about more than achievement. It's about commitment. It's about service that leaves something better than you found it. Frank Lawson has done exactly that. On behalf of our board and our region, it is my honor to present the Outstanding Public Career Award to Frank Lawson. Thank you for your decades of leadership, your integrity, and your unwavering service to this community. We thank you. So please join us in thanking Frank. And show the award. I need to laugh a little bit because it looks like a crystal ball, and we joked a lot about forecasting and future stuff. We'll maybe get a picture at a break later, but bring this over to you now. That's it for me. Thanks, Frank.
Is that it? Okay, I'll jump in. The only thing I have is I'm going to attend the Cali Young Neighborhood Association by invitation tomorrow night. They were going to give me some questions, but hasn't happened yet. So maybe I'll get them tomorrow at 5. You know, so with that, then I'll pass it to Frank. Do you have anything for?
Yeah, President Brown, commissioners, good evening. Really, that was very long. You know, I thought it was going to be about my sense of humor, but it wasn't. So thank you. I actually, when I heard about it, I really thought that it was a really good reflection of EWEB. You know, I think EWEB has done a great job, and our staff works very well with LCOG, City of Eugene, City of Springfield, Lane County. And a lot of good relationships have been built, and I'm really just taking this as a reflection of how staff works so well with these other organizations for really important causes. So thank you very much. The couple of items that I had, I'll be somewhat brief because I know we have a number of correspondence items to go through as well. One of them I wanted to just mention that I did meet with John Hairston a few weeks ago, so we're kicking off transitionary discussions, and staff has been responding to some of his areas of interest, and so we'll continue that. I'll actually see him again next week at an event, and so that transition is starting to happen behind the scenes and transfer a lot of information and ideas. And then the second thing I had just in information was EWEB was given an award by the largest user group, the SAP user group, for the Digital Cloud Transformation Project of the Year. And this has to do with our new customer system and new finance system and how we approach that, moving from a legacy system that was put in the last millennia, actually back in the 1900s. That sounds very old. And awarded by an independent panel. So it's not a vendor giving you an award for spending money with them. This was an independent group of industry experts and leaders. And we can, I guess, beat out people like Waymo, if you know them, the automatic, which I don't know if you'd want to write in those, but they're pretty exciting. So I just wanted to congratulate the team, in particular, Travis Knabe and Julie McGahee and Deborah Hart for their work on that. So that was my final item.
Okay, thank you. And that will wrap that up. Next agenda item is correspondence.
There were a number of pieces of correspondence, and so I just wanted to take just a couple of minutes to run through those just at a high level. The first item was an annual compliance report. This is driven by SD8, which is our trading and compliance for power trading report that we do for the board, just to ensure that the direction is being set through the policy and through how we're operating. The second was a combination of a couple of different items, kind of a part one, part two, looking at resource adequacy across the region. This particular memo focused mostly on some of the challenges of the region and ultimately what that is going to lead to as far as regulatory constraints that we'll have to operate under and what EWEB's role is in that. And then a second part having to do with the opportunities to use local generation to help meet some of those regulatory requirements, specifically some of the questions around why we're studying the performance and impacts of the U of O generator and what we're looking for out of that. And so that was kind of a two-part series there. And then you want to advance the slide, please? The other correspondence items, one of them was an annual report related to another board policy. It's written in the policy itself that we will provide an annual update to the board on resiliency work that is taking place in several different areas, not just infrastructure, which you would think about, but also finance resiliency, workforce, and community involvement in that resiliency. The fourth item of correspondence, Jason Huser provided an end of session update on various House bills and Senate bills that we were following throughout the session and kind of where those landed. And then the final update is just kind of an ongoing, when there's something noteworthy on the progress of the Willamette treatment plant. We did have have made progress on land use and also environmental permitting. And then the design is progressing toward an important board meeting coming up in July where more details will be shared with the board. And so I think that was the correspondence item. President Brown, if anybody had any questions or comments, I'd be happy to answer them either myself or through staff in the room.
Questions or comments from anybody? Tim?
Yeah, thank you, President Brown. I was waiting for the boiler project study to come out. It sounds like that's not going to be an agenda item, but I do have significant concern with our involvement with that project and the UO boiler system. And just to be brief, that there was a recommendation from the Thermal Energy Task Force at the University of Oregon about 3 or 4 years ago that recommended to change the boiler system, and then that was pocketed into a desk and not addressed since. And now EWEB's involvement in this from a certain lens can look like it's attempting to legitimize the usage of these boiler systems once again. These boilers make up 72% of the greenhouse gas emissions at the university and are one of the significant contributors of greenhouse gas emissions in our community. And so there are concerns that I have as a commissioner about how they're affecting how our community is addressing climate change and addressing our climate goals. And so I have a future board agenda at the end of our meeting to recommend to follow through on this, but I wanted to mention that that I just, as an individual commissioner, have some significant concerns about this pilot project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? So I'm John B.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the correspondence. I was especially interested or intrigued by the what would happen if there were a rolling blackout type of thing, learning about, where we would do that, how it would roll out. I think that that's something that our communications team might want to think about, figuring out how we can get that out there to the public beforehand, so that if at some point we do have to, hate to say it, do rolling blackouts or brownouts, it's not a total shock to our customers. But again, I don't want to put a fear factor out there as well. But I thought it was very interesting, that we have plans in place to make sure that the infrastructure that is most needed, our police, fire, hospitals, water treatment plants, and stuff like that, are all planned for resiliency, but that there may be neighborhoods that might be out for hours at a time in the case of a shortage. So I was intrigued by that, and I don't know if that's something that we want to think about, but it was nice for me to see that, and I don't know if our customers would like to see that as well.
Thank you. I'll chime in and I'll just kind of respond to Commissioner Morris's concern about the plan. I look forward to the discussion because I too am concerned about when we have power shortages and we have resource adequacy demands to be met. And we're not going to run this thing if the study shows that it's a good thing. If we don't have power there, then we have to buy it on the market, and it's a lot dirtier, and it creates more greenhouse gas emissions. And maybe not in our community, but in other communities. So, I don't think that there's going to be a lot of balancing and talking. But if we don't even know if we acquired that resource, if we'd even run it. So, I mean, this is going to be a great discussion to have to the pros, the cons, and the costs and things such as that, and the reliability. So, I do have a question on Willamette. Where are we on the UP rail negotiations crossing the rail line?
Looking for my Chris, my line of sight to Chris to make sure I don't mess this up. But right now they haven't exactly started, to my knowledge. We're looking at whether we would open cut or bore as far as a plan goes. Is that correct, Chris?
Yeah. All right. So I would just give words of caution. In my years of working when like helping the U of O get an underpass under the main line at the research park, it takes years. And we know why the Chambers Connector overpass has been delayed 2 years in construction, because somebody didn't get the proper permits just to work above the rail line. They're very challenging to work with, and I give all my advice is to start that dialogue sooner than later, because if they say we can't go under that rail line, we can't go under that rail line. I mean, I don't want it to be a problem, but I'm just giving a word of caution. So thank you very much. Any other things about correspondence? Frank?
Yeah, President Brown, just one comment, and part of the reason to tie the particular memos together regarding resource adequacy and the U of O project is that all of the studies are indicating that there's going to be challenges at peak times in the region, and as a member who operates in the region as part of the grid, EWEB will be subject to certain regulatory requirements around resource adequacy and having reserve capacity available. Whether we use it or not, we will have to have it available. If we don't understand and prudently evaluate this as an option, we will have to go out and look for other options. This will not be a choice for EWEB in a couple years from now. And so the reason for the study is to prudently evaluate its performance. If it is used for a resource adequacy option, whether it's run for 1 hour or 0 hours or 12 hours a year, we have to have quantified its performance so that it can be registered as a valid qualified resource. Those are the reasons for the study, and it would be, I would say it would be a really poor move not to evaluate it.
Thank you. The comments or questions? All right, the next agenda item is public input. And I know that we're scheduled for 6:20, so we'll start the public input. We'll go, and if we're done by then, back at 6:20 again, I'll ask if anybody else has signed up. So I'll read the preamble. It's also EWEB is a public not-for-profit organization whose charters deliver drinking water and electricity to our community. Although this forum is not used for an open back and forth dialogue, commissioners and staff value hearing diverse perspectives and receiving community input. Speakers are asked to keep their testimony relevant to EWEB business and request that everyone share their comments in a productive and respectful manner. Should speakers or audience members become disruptive, they may be muted and or removed from the meeting. Optional. At this time, we have, I think, 3 callers and 1 in-person speaker signed up to provide testimony. When your name is called, you'll have up to 3 minutes to provide your comments. And the public session is now open. And the first on the phone is Doug Myers, followed by Dylan Plummer.
Members of the board and EWEB leadership, I am Doug Myers. I pay for EWEB services where I reside in Bethel in Ward 6. I have several points in response to your choice to oppose ballot measure 20-373. First, your action has caused considerable reputational harm to my evaluation of EWEB leadership for the reasons that follow. Second, action by EWEB was not required. It chose opposition to the measure. Third, opposition to the measure by EWEB leadership was not narrowly tailored and therefore exceeded your purview by condemning efforts to protect watersheds in Lane County which do not serve EWEB. Fourth, embracing the sufficiency of existing watershed laws and regulations cited by EWEB leadership rings hollow, as I fully expect EWEB opposed each of those for the same reasons when they were historically proposed. It's not in the nature of corporate counsel to embrace additional compliance burdens, even when those target bad actors. Fifth, opposition to the measure by EWEB leadership cites the possibility of increased compliance and litigation costs to EWEB and therefore to ratepayers. What EWEB has apparently not evaluated or perhaps ignored is the countervailing potential for increased costs to EWEB and ratepayers from harm to the watersheds by bad actors that the measure could have prevented, which harm EWEB can neither regulate nor prevent, but that could increase costs to EWEB and ratepayers. Six, having monitored the multi-year development of this measure, EWEB leadership was apparently so uninvested in the objective of the measure that it simply threw up its hands, utterly failing to pursue parallel drafting of a robust, detailed Lane County safe harbor ordinance that could have addressed and still can address the supposed ambiguity of the measure. Surely EWEB must have known of, yet disregarded this safe harbor tool. Seventh, EWEB leadership will neither reconsider its opposition to the measure, will not address this or other criticism, nor even engage further as I read the deeply disappointing board rules of conduct that enforce groupthink once a decision has been made. It is the rejection of real engagement that eventually provokes citizens to take action that EWEB has criticized without leaning into the lessons to be learned. Ballot measures and litigation against good organizations happen when they stop listening. To paraphrase MLK for this EWEB customer, my strident objection against wrong is just as much an obligation as my support and cooperation with the right. You are late and wrong. I truly hope you're listening. I'd be glad to respond to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Dylan Plummer.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. President Brown and EWEB board members, my name is Dylan Plummer. I work with the Sierra Club as a campaign advisor for our National Clean Heat Program, and I live here in Eugene in Ward 2. I'm testifying tonight on behalf of the Sierra Club's thousands of members in EWEB service territory to voice our concern about the EWEB and UO fossil gas pilot program. This pilot was pushed forward without any public notice or engagement and is taking the utility in the wrong direction. The University of Oregon boiler system is currently the single largest source of emissions in the city of Eugene, according to DEQ data. The pilot project is slated to dramatically increase these emissions. According to a statement from Steve Mytal, the director of the University of Oregon's Office of Sustainability, on average January, the system would increase gas use from 43,000 MMBTU up to 72,000, the equivalent of burning over 4 million pounds of coal. This increase in fossil fuels is in direct conflict with the City of Eugene's Climate Recovery Ordinance, which calls for a 50% reduction in fossil fuel use by 2030. It also conflicts with EWEB's Strategic Direction Policy 15, which sets a goal of 95% of the electricity that the utility provides coming from carbon-free sources by 2030. Instead of doubling down on polluting fossil fuel generation, EWEB must instead be making investments in local distributed energy resources, including community solar, microgrids, and behind-the-meter batteries, along with investments in the demand response resources. I strongly urge the EWEB board to cancel their misguided fossil fuel pilot project and to work with other governments and public institutions in our community to create a plan to invest in proven approaches to reduce emissions and build grid resilience. Specifically, I urge the board to explore a distributed energy resource pilot focused on establishing community solar and in-building battery storage on publicly owned buildings like our City Hall or 4J school buildings. Thank you for your consideration and for your service to the community.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Jack Dodson. You there, Jack? Do we have Jack?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Hello, I'm an EWEB customer in Ward 3. I'm also a University of Oregon student. I'm also here to voice my concern about the CTG pilot project between the U of O and EWEB. Firstly, EWEB needs to be making investments in local renewable energy generation. I believe investing in more fossil fuel energy generation is taking us in the opposite direction. I understand that there are concerns about, the potential for energy shortages, and I think what better opportunity to, increase the build out of renewable energy. Also, before the public comment, you all were talking about the importance of this study. Well, this study would have to go into next winter anyway, so you might as well just use the time before then to increase the build out of renewable energy. If the utility is concerned about grid resilience, we should be incentivizing public institutions like the UO to be building out distributed energy resources such as solar and behind-the-meter batteries. I'm also really concerned about the lack of public input and the lack of transparency around this project, both from EWEB and the university. Frankly, the university has continued to delay and obstruct climate action. And there's currently a vote of no confidence happening in our university president right now. And that just highlights how they've proven that they're not going to act in good faith on climate and other issues. And so I don't know, as a student, it's hard for me to see there being any benefits to this sort of program that would raise campus emissions. Thank you.
Thank you. And last speaker, then President Andrew Simron.
Hello. Hello, my name is Andrew Simron. I am a ratepayer and lifelong Eugene resident in Ward 7. I'm come before the board to discuss the EWEB and University of Oregon pilot project on energy generation. From what I'm understanding, you're looking at studying this. I guess a question I would have is, are you studying other ways to meet the demand that this project is supposedly supposed to, resolve or solve? It seems to me like we should be also studying renewable energy generation and incentivizing public institutions to be building out distributed energy resources and energy storage systems as well. We know also that our region has geothermal potential, and that can provide a nice base load of clean energy potentially as well. I am concerned very much about the fossil fuel emissions as a result of the project because of Eugene's climate ordinances and climate action plan 2.0. It's important that we reduce the burning of fossil fuels that create these toxic emissions as well that would go right onto the greenway where I frequently ride my bicycle. Also, I'm concerned that there's been no public input or outreach about this, considering that it sounds like the whole community will be affected. I do like the idea of ratepayers being communicated to about potential blackouts or brownouts, and part of that communication could also be demand side demand response, I guess, to incentivize people to use, shift the load of the energy when they use it as part of those communications, so we can avoid blackouts during or brownouts during peak periods. So I guess I would ask that we study other carbon-free ways to meet the peak needs, and not solely look at something that's already there that's so polluting. As was mentioned, it's the largest greenhouse gas emissions in the city. So I ask that we look to explore other ways to meet that peak demand. And thank you for the opportunity to provide comment.
Thank you. Anybody else signed up? I guess on the phone is Isa. Is Isa there? Isa is not there. Say again?
Isa, maybe?
Isa? I mean, that's.
Isa, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Isa.
Okay, thank you. Please proceed.
All right, thank you. I am also here to give comment on the EWEB boiler pilot program. I am an EWEB customer, a Eugene resident, and a University of Oregon student. and I would like to urge my local public utility to put their time and resources towards making our grid truly resilient, and that means that it does not rely on out-of-date and unsustainable power sources that harm our environment and communities. This means incentivizing public institutions like the University of Oregon to invest in distributed energy resources such as solar and behind-the-meter batteries, and we should also be focused on demand response efforts to reduce peak loads in general. The UO is being run as a for-profit institution and will take any opportunity to generate revenue. EWEB, as another public institution, should not enable and encourage them to incorporate more fossil fuel reliance into their revenue stream through the UO pilot program. The program should have had more opportunities for public input. Please be a part of the just transition towards renewable energy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? That's it. All right. Well, I'll close the public hearing and ask for commissioner comments. Commissioner Schlossberg, Commissioner Mo,
Who gave public comment tonight?
Commissioner Morris.
Yeah, thank you, President Brown. Yeah, very similar. Thank you for everyone who gave comment. A common theme that I heard this last month in particular was how difficult it is to get out this far, just maybe a conversation to LTD rather than EWEB, but also just how many other things are happening at the same exact time. So truly, thank you for anyone who came out and provided comment.
Commissioner Borowski. Nothing. Commissioner Carlson.
I also appreciate the people coming out tonight and expressing their views. I take it all to heart, and I am very interested in what the outcome of this study is. I mean, we could also find out that it's more energy inefficient, and we could decide that we don't want to do anything. It could actually validate your claims more that it shouldn't be used. I mean, we don't know the outcome until we study it. So for me, just being a data-driven person, I would like to know more about the resource in comparison to the other options that are available during peaking times. And that's really critical because our solar resources and wind resources, we would use those all day long if we could and they were available. The problem is that some of those are not available at the same times. I also do want to note that we are doing demand response. Look at that. I mean, part of the reason that we did this whole huge overhaul of our internal computer systems was so that we could do these more, forward-looking demand response type systems. So it is in the works. Those are long-term fixes. Also, we can't employ new energy overnight. That takes land acquisition. It takes, purchasing, all of those things. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't do all those. I'm saying we are, and we should continue to do them. And so I agree with you in that respect, but I also think that we need to be realistic about where we're at. And we also know that with climate change, our weather is wildly different than what we've had to prepare in the past. And so being able to meet people, especially in times where we would use this in a very drastic situation, think about our ice storms. I mean, people can die when it's freezing cold out. So for me, knowing that we have the resource adequacy in case we needed to turn it on in life-saving measures, it might change my tune. But I'm a hardcore environmental advocate and fully support not using natural gas wherever possible. So I still want to know what the data says. So thank you for coming out. I appreciate what you had to say.
Anything else from anybody? Well, that'll do the commissioner comments then. So the next agenda item is agenda number 5 is a public hearing and alternative procurement process using the CMGC. Lisa?
Good evening, commissioners. I'm Lisa Krentz, Chief Electric Operations Officer. Joining me tonight is Patty Boyle, our Carmen Smith Licensed Deployment Supervisor. We're here to discuss our request for an alternative procurement process. Before the public hearing on the topic is opened, Patty will provide a brief summary.
So good evening, commissioners. As Lisa mentioned, we're here this evening to conduct a public hearing and request the board's approval of an exemption from the standard procurement processes in order to select a construction manager and general contractor. This would be for the 3 remaining large civil projects up at the Carmen Smith Hydroelectric project.
Specifically, the CMGC will include the license required upstream fish passage, downstream fish passage, and then the spillway, flow release, and spillway expansion projects. The construction manager and general contractor for the, or CMGC, we'll just shorten it to that, approach integrates the construction planning phase with the general contractor phase of project delivery for efficient and continuous project construction management. The standard process would have contracting for construction begin with the general contractor. After the designs are complete and are ready for construction, we bring on a CMGC in order to maintain a continuous and smooth process through that project delivery. The CMGC contract that we have, approach that we have in place right now has worked very well for us for the past 15 years. That's in part because of the remote location and regulatory constraints and limited construction season we have at Carmen. And we expect that a highly qualified contractor will improve EWEB's ability to plan for the construction of these projects with early participation in design, value engineering efforts, and regulatory requirement management for each of the projects. The CMGC process also allows EWEB staff to focus on design and regulatory process management on a daily basis, while the CMGC is responsible for the many construction contracts that must be put in place, as well as daily construction oversight. This CMGC contract will be procured through a competitive request for proposals to be issued in the next couple of weeks. And proposers will be evaluated on relevant experience, qualifications, price, and references from similar work. A selection will be made based on the best overall value to EWEB, and will return to the board for approval of the CMGC contract, and that approval is tentatively scheduled for July. In addition to approval of the contract, the board will also be asked to approve construction planning task orders, as well as ultimately the construction task orders for each of those 3 projects I mentioned.
Thank you. Questions or comments before I open the public hearing? I'd just like to comment, I'm familiar with this process, and given the logistics of where that is and the weather window, and knowing that workers just don't go home at 5, they got a 3-hour commute back and forth every day, and just the logistics and getting a load of concrete up there takes 3 times, 5 times longer than it does locally. So I understand why you're doing this, and I think it's really a good move, and I really appreciate it. So thank you very much. Anything else? If not, then I'm going to open the public hearing on the CMGC contract procurement process. Is there anybody signed up to testify? Nope. Then I'll close it. We're done.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Lisa?
Yeah.
Do they have to actually approve the alternative process? I mean,
We have that as
hearing.
I think there's something on the
the
consent
next
calendar.
agenda item is
Yeah,
an
okay.
action item is to approve that.
Thank you.
So agenda item number 6 is approval of the alternative procurement process, and which I would seek a motion to approve.
Move to approve?
Moved by Carlson, second by Schlossberg. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next agenda item is consent calendar A. Assume everybody's read it. If
Yep.
there's anybody wants to pull anything, that's great. And if not, I'd entertain a motion.
Move to approve?
Second. Second by Schlossberg. In discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next agenda item is approval of consent calendar B.
I had a quick question about number 7, but
Sure.
we can do it during
You wanna pull it?
discussion. I'll move the approval of consent calendar B unless anybody had somebody else or an item to pull. Okay. Move to approve consent calendar B.
Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Oh, 1 second. Just one quick question on it.
Go ahead.
Can you tell me what the Dropbox services are that we're approving? It seems wildly different from bark mulch. Is that literally somebody like coming out and maintaining drop boxes where we do payments? I just wanted to know what that service actually is.
That's a very good question, and I honestly can't answer it.
Okay.
But I don't think it's maintaining the, letters. I would assume it's around maintaining calls and such, but maybe somebody else. I was on vacation when this went through. I don't know, Karen, if you had any.
Oh, I might know.
Given its lane forest
We can find
process, it is likely drop boxes related to landscape materials, other, material delivery, takeaway of scraps and other things. So it's probably
Oh, I
bi-directional.
see.
It's
Okay,
not
so
drop
it's-
box like drop
Yeah, that's why I
boxes.
was confused by it. Okay, all right, that's fine. Thank you. Okay.
You good with it?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll call the question. All those in favor of the consent calendar B signify by saying aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. The next agenda item is the audited financial statements. And management letter.
Good evening, Commissioners. This presentation really belongs to Keith Simovic at Baker Tilly, but I do have with me this evening Aaron Balmer, Financial Services Manager, and Matthew Miller, our General Accounting and Treasury Supervisor. And I guess I did not say for the record, I am Deborah Hart, the AGM and CFO. Will be available to answer any questions, but Keith, it looks like you're there, so I'm going to hand it off to you.
Thank you for that, Deborah. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. Good evening, Commissioners. Always excited to be here at the end of this process, right? Because this means that we're done with the audit at this point, right? So we were able to kind of finalize all of our procedures and issue all of our final audit reports. So that's the objective really for this evening, is to kind of go through those final results. What did we find along the way? What are our different deliverables that we issued? And do a quick introduction of some of the other folks of our team, because it was much more than just myself that was involved in this process. And for the record, again, I'm Keith Simovic, principal with Baker Tilly. And before I dive into, I also just want to give a shout out to General Manager Frank Lawson. Thank you for all of your years and engagement in working through this process, and wish you best of luck on your next endeavors. So thank you again for all the years of assistance in this process and your leadership. All right, we can go ahead and move forward into the next slide. And I think this is where we kind of go through the different services and different deliverables that we provide as part of this process, because there's a number of them here, right? There's a number of different bullet points, and each one of them means something a little bit different. So I want to kind of go through each one of those and what our final audit message is within each one of those. So the top bullet point there is probably the audit report that you might be the most familiar with. And that's really the audit report over the fairness and accuracy of your financial statements themselves. So this is always attached to that financial statement document once a year, that we put at the front there to say through all the procedures that we do, following all of our professional standards, making sure that we are doing all the detailed testing and sampling and evaluations, and interviews and a look at your internal controls to get to the point where we've said, hey, we've got enough substantive evidence to support that what's been recorded in your general ledger by your finance and accounting team and captured throughout the year through everyone kind of following through on internal control policies and procedures and getting to this point where you're ready for audit. And we can get enough evidence to say, yep, things were recorded at the right amount in the right period, classified in the appropriate accounts. And that financial statement document itself really gives a good picture, a clear, complete, and accurate picture of the financial statements of EWEB as of December 31st, 2025. That's the goal at the end of the day. I can say within that report, we're giving what's known as an unmodified opinion, which is synonymous with a clean opinion. Exactly what you're looking for. Any third party that gets their hands on this, they want to see that you've gotten an audit done by an independent CPA firm that's qualified to do the work, and they've given a clean opinion over your financial statements is a very, very important thing. Second bullet point there, it's actually the same deliverable. It's within the same audit report, but we also mentioned that we're doing an audit over the fairness and accuracy of the EWEB OPEB trust. So there's a separate set of financial statements within that same kind of financial reporting package, I'll call it. So you'll see a separate kind of balance sheet and income statement for the OPEB trust. So it's not kind of commingled in with EWEB's balance sheet and income statement. It's a separate kind of set of financial statements within that same reporting package. And we audit that as well to make sure that that is presented fairly and accurately in accordance with the accounting standards that you have to follow. So we're also giving an unmodified opinion on that piece of the audit. The third bullet point down has to do with what's called the single audit. This is a compliance audit that we have to do whenever you spend more than $1 million in federal awards in a given year. That triggers this additional compliance audit that the federal government says, hey, auditor, if you're in there doing a financial statement audit and the organization spent more than $1 million in federal funding in a given year, you also have to do this single audit, this test of compliance to make sure that those federal award dollars were spent in line with those underlying award agreements, those federal grant agreements. And so those are something this year you were over that threshold again. It's been a number of years now that you've kind of hit that threshold. So this isn't a brand new thing to EWEB, but it's not something that you necessarily have every single year. And we have to note whether we have any instances of non-compliance with those underlying grant agreements that we're testing. We did not have any instances of material non-compliance noted within those reports. So good news there as well. That's something that also gets filed with the federal government. Fourth bullet point down there, we're doing the audit in accordance with government auditing standards. That is required in any year and when you have that single audit, right? The federal government says, hey, you got to make sure you're doing the audit in accordance with government auditing standards, which is very similar to the normal kind of corporate professional auditing standards we have to use, with pretty much the main difference being an additional reporting requirement where we have to have this separate report, which is also kind of attached to your single audit reporting package that gets filed with the federal government. And within that report, we have to note whether we had any instances of material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in your internal control environment. So we're in there looking at your internal controls each and every year. This is something, if we had material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls, we'd still note that to the Board of Commissioners each and every year. But now, because the audit's being performed in accordance with government auditing standards, you have a separate reporting requirement there where we have to note that, attach that to your single audit, and that gets filed with the federal government as well. That final bullet point is the audit report that we have to do in accordance with Oregon municipal audit standards. So the state of Oregon says, when a audit firm is in there doing a financial statement audit of an Oregon municipal corporation, we have to test compliance with certain Oregon revised statutes. And so there's a number of different things that you'll see in that report. It's attached to your financial statements. It's towards the back of that document. And there's a bullet point list of the different things that they want us to take a look at each and every year. I'd say most namely where we're spending the bulk of our time is going to be in the public procurement process, pulling a sample of different examples of the contracting process, the procurement process that you followed, making sure depending on the size and type of procurement that you're following through on all those state statutes out there. But we also have to test and see where you're parking your funds. Are those in depositories that are approved by the state treasury? We'll have to take a look at the investments that you're getting into. Are those allowed for a local government in line with the Oregon revised statutes? So there's a number of different things in there. If we note any instances of non-compliance, we have to note that. We did not have any instances of non-compliance noted within that Oregon Municipal Audit Standards report. So those are the different audit reports that we issue. Kind of transitioning forward to this slide, kind of just give you a little bit more flavor as to kind of the audit process, the things that we're looking at. This is really kind of our areas of audit emphasis. So the areas where we're probably developing additional procedures, more procedures to get to the point where we feel comfortable at the end of the day and can issue our audit opinion to say, hey, how things have been recorded in these areas is a fair and accurate representation of the transactions at EWEB over the course of the last year. There's a reason that we're spending a bulk of our time in these areas. This isn't everything that we're looking at. By no means at all is this everything that we're looking at. but these are the areas where we probably spend the bulk of our time. So the work order classification area, this is one where we spend a lot of time because of the dollars that are running through that work order process and all the different sources of costs that come into a work order, whether it's through payroll charges, materials charges, overhead charges. You have a lot of moving pieces, a lot of things that need to happen, a lot of coordination and communication between different departments to get to the point where a work order is completed and you can place that into service and you can start that depreciation process on the accounting side in a timely manner. That start of capitalizing those work orders, placing them into service and starting the depreciation process is a very important piece on the accounting side and something that we look at very closely each and every year. So because of the number of processes and policies and controls that have to be in place, we spend a lot of time on that each and every year. Revenues and expenses over power trading is another area that we're spending a lot of time on. Again, because you've got a lot of moving pieces there to make sure that those are captured at the right amount and reported in the appropriate accounts and reflected accurately in your financial statements. There's a lot of policies to follow through on those types of transactions, a lot of internal controls that have to be working to make sure that that happens completely and accurately, and those get reflected and captured in your general ledger. So we spend a lot of time in that area. The third item down there, management override of controls. Sounds a little bit scary, but that is not something unique to EWEB. That is something that we have to have as a key area of audit emphasis on every audit that we do. That is required by our professional standards now, and just to be developing procedures each and every year to address the risk of management override of controls, right? Because management typically are individuals that, because of their significance and influence on others that they supervise, because of maybe the access they have within the IT systems and in the internal control environment, right, can lend itself to management override of controls. So we have to perform a certain set of procedures each and every year to make sure that we don't see any evidence of that. And then finally, of course, because you have the single audit this year, that test of compliance, we're doing separate sampling there, testing those transactions for compliance because of those federal award dollars that are getting spent each and every year. Go ahead and advance the slide. This required communication slide, this is consistent with a separate letter that we issue as a deliverable each and every year as part of the audit. So that letter is addressed to the Board of Commissioners, and it's really just for this body, right? The idea there is that we're giving you additional information in how the audit went. It's not just, did you get a clean opinion or not? Did you have compliance findings or not? This tells you more information as to, well, did you run into issues along the way? Did you get all the information that you asked for? Was management responsive? Did you have any disagreements? Did you have any errors that you noted or internal control deficiencies? Those are the types of things that you'll see within this letter, and that's not attached to your financial statements, right? Again, because this is a letter that is addressed just to the Board of Commissioners. So the different bullet points on here align with the different paragraphs you'll see within that letter. I'm not going to go through each and every one of these. There's a lot of kind of standard language in there that is required by our professional standards that we have to note, whether we found anything or had any issues or not. So a lot of this, you're going to see very boilerplate language that we didn't find anything there, which is definitely good news. But a few things that I like to call out each and every year. One, that second bullet point for significant accounting policies. This is something that we have to evaluate each and every year. What are the set of accounting policies that your team at EWEB is using and following? Is that aligning with the governmental accounting standards that every government has to follow? Are we saying that there's changes from year to year that your team is employing and changing kind of the rules that they're following last year versus this year? In general, we would not expect that to happen unless there's new accounting standards that every local government has to follow. And that's what we identified this year. There weren't really any changes that your team made, which is great. We wouldn't expect that, other than adoption of a new accounting standard that everyone had to adopt. And that was GASB 102 related to certain risk disclosures. This is a really disclosure only standard that came out in the current year that is only required in certain triggering type events when you have certain concentrations or constraints is what this standard speaks to. And so if you have certain kind of negative things happen related to those two items, that will trigger certain types of disclosures. You didn't have anything like that, so this standard really didn't impact EWEB's accounting or financial reporting for the current year, but your team did evaluate it and is aware of this kind of going forward if any of those triggering events happen in the future. We also note if there were any audit adjustments. This would be anything if we note any material audit errors as we're going through and doing our testing. So as we're conducting our testing, if we're finding anything where we pull the underlying evidence and that evidence is pointing to the fact that, hey, this wasn't recorded at the right amount, wasn't recorded in the right period, wasn't recorded in the right account, or it doesn't follow the underlying governmental accounting standards that you have to follow. Those are the things that we have to evaluate on every piece of evidence that we're pulling and taking a look at when we're doing our testing. We did have a few items there, and we're going to go through that here on the next slide in just a minute. I also like to note that we didn't have any disagreements with management or difficulties in performing the audit. We were able to get all the information that we asked for from your team. Everyone was very engaged in this process, very responsive, transparent, and helpful in our interactions with them. There's a lot of documentation that we're asking for. Your finance team and accounting team does the heavy lifting there, but really it's a full team effort from EWEB, especially when we're doing our internal control evaluations, because internal controls happen throughout the organization. So we're talking to all kinds of different departments throughout EWEB each and every year as we go through this process, and really appreciate kind of all the help and hands-on deck approach that we got. In terms of audit observations and recommendations, this is a letter where we would also note to you, do we have any material weaknesses in our evaluation of internal controls? And then a material weakness would be something where a significant error could happen because of the lack of checks and balances in place. We didn't have anything that rose to that level in the current year, which is fantastic. We did have some best practice recommendations, as we typically do each and every year, that we share with management, but nothing that rose to a significant or material level. Go ahead and move to the next slide. Okay, so I mentioned there were a few adjusting items that we identified in the current year. These are items that, because of the amounts that we're talking about here, these aren't reflected in the 2025 financial statements, but they are getting updated in your 2026 records kind of going forward. So it's not that these things are never getting recorded, it's just the period with which they're getting recorded. The first two items are related. This has to do, as I mentioned before, an audit area of emphasis is always the timely closing of work orders. And through the testing that we did there, we noted a few items both on the water and electric side where there were certain projects that were completed. The underlying assets were being used for their intended purpose, but they had not been kind of closed out and reflected as plant and service and started that depreciation process as of year end. And so that's something that we were proposing an adjustment to move that to assets and service as of year end. Again, this is happening in 2026, not reflected in the 2025 financial statements. The last item there has to do with recording grant revenue. And so grant revenue, typically you want to record the revenue as you're incurring the related expense. And so there is a certain instance where we noted a certain amount related to grant revenue on the water side where the expenditures had occurred, but the grant revenue had not been accrued for as of year end. So that revenue did get recorded just in 2026 instead of 2025. Those are the items that we kind of noted in our testing process this year. Go ahead and advance the slide. This is a snapshot, not of our full team, definitely a lot more involved in terms of our staff and seniors that were assisting with conducting a lot of the actual on-site audit work. But this is kind of the core managerial group. In addition to myself, we had Laurel Bruscheko serving as our concurring reviewer, our QC reviewer, very key role that really someone that's not involved in our audit team or working with EWEB at all, just kind of coming in with that cold reviewer kind of approach and making sure we're following all of our professional standards, we're setting our audit plan appropriately, and then at the end that we followed through on that audit plan. She's also, of course, reviewing the financial statements just like I do, making sure it includes all of the bells and whistles that the governmental accounting standards requires. Ida Alvarado, she's been on these presentations in the past with me. She's not here tonight, but she was our audit senior manager this year. She's very involved in our power and utilities industry group, and she helped me with overseeing our team and helping with some of the review of our audit files. So that's the kind of core managerial portion of our team. All right, I think that's everything that we had here for you tonight. The only other thing I wanted to say was just kind of another shout out to the finance and accounting team for all the efforts that they put into this process. It's not an easy process, and I will say this is probably one of the quickest turnarounds that we have from when we finish our audit fieldwork. So we spent about 2 weeks of on-site fieldwork, final fieldwork that we started in kind of the February timeframe. And within 2 weeks of leaving the field, we are finalizing EWEB's financial statements and all of our audit reports, including the single audit, the OPEB audit, all of those things, right? And we wouldn't be able to do that if it weren't for the team that you have, the level of organization that they have, the responsiveness that they've shown throughout this process, and really kind of taking this process seriously and working with us pretty collaboratively along the way to make sure, you know, we've got our team all aligned in terms of the audit requests when we're receiving things and getting through the audit process timely so we can hit that 2-week post fieldwork deadline. So pretty fantastic overall. I would say this is probably the quickest one that I have from ending fieldwork to actually issuing our audit report. So hats off to the team there. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions the commissioners might have.
Okay, open up to questions, comments. I know we have one commissioner that loves audits, and John Borowski. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for the work. Thank you to finance staff. Couple of quick questions, and then so one of the first questions I would have is, again, I'm going to ask this, and I've already heard the answer, but tell me about working with our finance staff and our crew. Did everything go smooth? And compare it to any other audits that you've done.
Sure. Thanks for the question, Commissioner Borowski. So I would say, kind of reiterate the comments I made. Your team's very organized and they take this process seriously. You're not seeing material weaknesses. You're not seeing material audit adjustments. Yeah, there's some small things that come up from time to time. Yeah, there's some best practice recommendations we pass along. But you're not seeing things that go, you know, unattended to, and that they grow to bigger issues down the road. They take it seriously when we have recommendations. They're implementing them. The conversation is going with them throughout the year as things come up, to stay in contact and make sure as new types of transactions that EWEB is entering into, new things that come up, we're discussing those early on, right? So they're proactive in reaching out and kind of utilizing the partnership with us to make sure they understand, well, how are you going to audit this? What are you going to need? How does that impact the timeline, right? So we're able to kind of work through those things throughout the year and have that conversation. And then when we're setting up kind of the audit plan and everything, that's already kind of woven into kind of the audit request. They know what to expect. And I'd say that was highlighted definitely, not every year, but I would say a year ago with the SAP conversion, right? And going through the audit kind of the first time post SAP conversion, lots of discussion of, you know, changes that are being made and, you know, want to get us in there early and looking at things and integrating kind of our IT specialists that play a big part in our internal control evaluation and bringing them into the conversation early on as you were implementing SAP. So just very collaborative, very you know, proactive in this process and very engaged. And like I said, takes it very seriously.
Great. Then the second question I'm going to have is probably for internal staff, and you teed it up very well. This is second year using SAP. How have you found the integration of that coming along? Has that been helpful? Has the staff been able to utilize the tools that were implemented with the new SAP program, and how's it working?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, go ahead.
That's probably to Deborah.
This is Aaron Ballmer speaking on that topic. It's been a learning curve, and so we have found efficiencies this year, but certainly we have identified further steps that we can take to garner more efficiencies from that system. So I'd say we're stable in terms of the way that we're tackling transaction recording with the system, getting reporting out of the system, but we have a lot that we see that we want to do, that we know we can do, that we're just itching to do. So it's going to get better.
Great, thank you. And then the last portion is going to be, you brought this up, and this is the second, possibly the third year in a row that the corrected and unreported statements has gone to closing work orders, both on the electric and the water side. I know we touched on that last year, and I thought that there was going to be a plan to do it. I know it's not a big deal, but that's the one thing that has come up year after year after year in this audit report. It's the only negative check mark that your team has, and I'm just wondering, is there something that we're working on to tighten that up?
You are correct. It is an area that we have struggled with since I've been at EWEB. So I can only presume that it goes back beyond 15 years. Every year we make enhancements to the way in which we educate the folks who need to close those work orders and to our reaching out. So when we see things like this right after I pull my hair out over it, we reflect back on our processes and ask ourselves what changes we could make to the process to ensure that work orders do not slip through the cracks. So this year it's part education and it's part a broader sweep of what we will in accounting open up and delve deeper into.
Perfect, thank you. And by no means let me take that as any sort of a negative reflection on the staff or anything like that. I think that this is a good, clean audit. Every audit that I've been involved with the EWEB has been a good, clean audit. And I just wanted to reiterate that, you know, this was quite a few pages, 100 and something page audit that we went through, and just to let you know that we do look at it. We appreciate all the work that finance has to do to prepare this audit and that the accounting firm does. So I really appreciate your work on this, Deborah, and all your team. Thank you for all you're doing, and know that it's not just being filed into a file that nobody reads. So thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Carl.
I just wanted to note that this is one of the few times where calling something boring is the highest respect that we can give. And so thank you for putting me to sleep. But no, it's really it's a wonderful situation to have it be boring. And thank you for that. It's one of the few things that we really have to do as an organization and as a board, is to make sure that our financials are, you know, doing the things that they say they're supposed to be doing. So look forward to it, and thank you for the long reading material. No,
it is
good.
Always our goal to deliver a very uninteresting, not exciting audit report. So thank you. We take that as a compliment.
Any other comments by anybody? Right?
Yeah, commissioners, I did want to just highlight a couple of things, and it came up with Commissioner Borowski's question about the work orders. There are always opportunities that we look at, and I think over the last at least 5 years, every year we come away with some type of continuous improvement around work orders, and right now some of that is a manual process, which we'll continue to work on. We do have some opportunities to take those lessons learned as we go into a new asset management system and field work management system here in a couple of years, when we do something similar that we did with the customer and finance system. And so we'll continue to do that. Some of those, when you're really thinking about that, we process thousands of work orders a year. Just for some context, that sometimes when a particular asset is deemed in service, there can be different interpretations between engineering and finance as to what exactly that means. And so there's obviously system and process improvements that Deborah Hart mentioned. We'll continue to do that, but couldn't be more pleased with the fact that it's a $500 million worth of boring, Commissioner Carlson. So we're excited by the boringness of it as well. because it wasn't that long ago. I think it was 2014 or so. We did not have a clean audit. We had some material weaknesses that were very significant. And so staff's come a long way. And I also wanted to thank Keith for his year's worth of guidance, not just in the audit process, but we reached out to Baker Tilly when it came to the implementation of the new system, and they provided a lot of really excellent guidance to our staff when it came to implementing the controls with the new system. So that door swings both ways, and Keith, we really appreciate that.
Thank you. Well, no other comments or anything. Keith, thank you very much. And thanks to your firm and your staff. Appreciate it every year. And thank you for the clean audit. So with that, and I thank everybody here. So we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the Watershed Annual Report.
President Brown, I was proposing that we just skip this year.
Why don't you try that?
Is that nobody's interested in this one?
Skip your retirement.
Okay. All right. Point taken.
I'll trade you.
You win.
Words up here. Yeah, I'll do that.
Well, good evening, Commissioners, President Brown, GM Lawson, others. Mike Masters, the Water Operations Manager. Happy to be here tonight with Susan Fricky, our Water Resource and Quality Assurance Supervisor, to share and discuss some highlights of the 2025 State of the Watershed Report. First, I'd like to thank you for your continued commitment and investment in the McKenzie Watershed. It is currently our sole source of drinking water for the community, and point out that this is the critical first step in our multi-barrier approach to ensure safe drinking water. I'll kick us off by reminding us of our drinking water source protection goals and then pass it to Susan. First, we have number one is work with partners to maintain source water quality, prioritize benefits to water treatment and electric generation in the McKenzie watershed, and third, to promote public awareness and stewardship. And with that, Susan can get into some of the details.
Good evening. So as a reminder, we monitor water quality quarterly as part of our baseline monitoring. We also monitor for runoff events, which means we try to grab like the first flush in the fall, then in the, is that not coming?
Sorry.
Oh, that one? Oh, sorry about that. There, is that better? Thank you, John Brown. So yeah, we monitor a handful of different ways for our water quality monitoring program. So we do our baseline monitoring, we do the first flush in the fall, we try to do a spring event after the potentially pesticides have been applied. We also monitor larger storms, baseline harmful algal monitoring blooms for that one, and then that's in May to October. For HABs this year, our harmful algal blooms, we saw no cyanotoxins in the system. Those are the toxins that the harmful algal blooms can produce. And that was at any of our monitoring locations for 2025, which is great news for our system. Baseline conditions were mostly typical across the sites. There were several low-level PFAS detections in the 52nd Street stormwater system, but that's not that unusual. But we had no PFAS were detected in the McKenzie River, and as always, there was none detected in our raw or treated drinking water. And we also had some storms that came in. You can see a picture there at Gate Creek with a higher turbidity. So those are the kind of things that we're looking like when we want to be out there sampling. For a reminder of why we're doing a little bit more of a special deep dive into urban stormwater monitoring. When we sampled in 2024, well, we were trying to get one of those spring flushes I was talking about in 2024, but it never really rained again. So when we got some rain in September, we went out and grabbed that water because those storm channels particularly had been sitting there with no water flushing through them for a while. And what we found was some rather high levels. Let's see, what are we pointing to right here? Is that showing up at all? Yeah, kind of. Here, I want to turn around and point for a second. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so what we're seeing, what's the best way to do for the pointer? So it's working? Okay, great. Thank you all. It just disappeared. So we went out in September and we grabbed that flush right there and we found these really high levels. Now note that this is a log scale. So we're finding things over 100,000 on that. And that's a pretty high for those conditions. We didn't know at the time if that was something we were just seeing because we normally don't sample for the bacteria in the stormwater in September, or if this is because those channels have been sitting stagnant for quite some time. So we kept doing this and we've talked to the board about this before. We also looked at the biomarkers for that for microbial source tracking, which could show us what the source is. When we did this about 10 years ago, we saw that the dominant source was canine. So then we worked with the city of Springfield on an education campaign to be able to look at reducing pet waste potentially into those stormwater systems. So we kept sampling in 2025 and we saw that the results were significantly lower, like an order of magnitude lower generally than what we had seen for those high results in 2024. And so we're not seeing the same response, which is good. You know, we don't want to have those very high levels. And then we're also seeing, you know, what did we see for the biomarkers? We saw some human in 52nd, we saw dog, we saw avian, we saw beaver. We do expect to have beaver in some of those lower systems. So we didn't really see anything as a driving force across all of those systems. Also wanted to note for this stuff, while we are seeing high levels, our treatment plant can treat for these levels of bacteria to keep our water safe. So that's not a concern. We're looking at these sources to be able, and the amount of bacteria to find ways to reduce the loading in the system. So what could have happened? Well, in conducting this bacteria study, we communicated closely with the city of Springfield, with their environmental services division, and we shared information back and forth as we always do. We had great communication with them throughout the year in 2025. They had identified several issues since we started the study in 2024 that have been remediated, and including they had a cross connection between sewer and stormwater that was fixed. They had cleaned and repaired infrastructure to reduce sewer overflow and blockages. And these could be part of why we're seeing less bacteria. So, I mean, those are great things. They're improving it. We're finding less bacteria. All of these are wins for us. Moving on to other parts of our source water protection monitoring, we have these continuous monitoring networks that we do with USGS. We've got the SONS, sorry, words right now. I'm working on this. As we wrap up the holiday farm fire monitoring, we are moving water quality data SONS, which are our continuous water quality instruments. Those are the ones that take measurements every 15 minutes, or like we can set it for 15 minutes, half an hour, but they're taking water quality like temperature, dissolved oxygen, turbidity, all those kind of things. We're removing those ones from the fire impacted areas as we kind of wrap up our holiday farm fire work. So those are coming out of Bear and Martin Creek. We worked with USGS to install some gauges up around Quartz Creek to look at the watershed restoration that we're doing up there for that floodplain project. And, you know, these SONS are very important because they're used by EWEB departments, including for a variety of departments, including our treatment and generation, as well as source water protection. We also wanted to talk about the pentachloroplume. We did move this meeting. Normally it was in March before. We moved it to April now to make sure that we had all the data for you all in 2025, from the 2025 data from that to be able to talk with you guys about this. And most of the monitoring sites for the wells were decreasing or non-detect, which is good news. We've been tracking 2 well sites that were a little bit different. They've been variable in the past. And what we've seen in the last few years is that those sites are stabilizing and or they've decreased. So all good news all around for that. As far as spill preparedness, what we do for that is we track incidences that occur where we could have fluids that go into the river. We had 7 reported incidents that we tracked in the watershed last year. One of those is highlighted, you can see with the box truck that wrecked right next to the river. That one was carrying large pieces of styrofoam. The fluids, I don't think got into the river for that one. Correct, David? No fluids in the river. We did, however, have large pieces of styrofoam that got in the river, and we had people go out in boats later from other agencies, went out and gathered that styrofoam up, so that was able to be recovered. We had a great spill drill again. We did our annual spill drill at Trailbridge Campground last year, and that was a beautiful location. It was a great drill. We had wonderful media coverage and an enthusiastic group of participants. And I'm excited to share this. Patty's not here anymore, but Patty Boyle shared with me earlier that, because I know people always ask, John Brofsky, I see you up there. May 1st is when the campgrounds are going to open up. At that point, they'll be first come, first serve. May 15th is the first reservable date on rec.gov, and the ribbon cutting will be on May 29th. So Trailbridge Campground and those campgrounds up there will be opened up for folks. They are beautiful up there. As you can see, like when we were there, the water was just absolutely gorgeous and blue and clear. It's a lovely time. This year, we're hoping to do the drill at Hendricks Park, which is lower down in the watershed, and that might make it easier for people to access that too if we have folks from the board or staff that would like to join us. As far as our Pure Water partners, what an amazing amount of work that they've done. Since 2021, we've planted almost 1 million trees and shrubs and worked with over 230 landowners. Such a huge success. We have so many partners that have worked diligently on this recovery project and this effort. Last summer is when we kind of wrapped up the holiday farm fire work for the Pure Water Partners, or the PWP, and we were pivoting and now returning to the original focus of the PWP, which is riparian protections. For septic assistance, we had continued with our septic assistance programs for maintenance and zero interest loans, which has gone well. You can see the statistics there. And then for the septic grants program, we have distributed over $3 million since January of 2023 across 175 grants for septic repair or replacement in the holiday farm fire footprint. Special thanks to Nancy Toth, who's here in the audience tonight, and also especially Misty Fisher for working on the septic program. It's just, they've been such an amazing resource, and this has provided such a great benefit for our community. One of the highlights for the septic program from last year is that Lane County added $1 million in 2025, and then another $1 million just last month we found out. So that's wonderful. And what was different about this funding is that it could be used for commercial properties and owners that bought their house after the fire. So that was what was adjusted for that before you had to own your house during the fire. Good stuff. And the catch with the funding for this is that the projects must be completed by September 1st of this year. So that is a tight timeline. There is no give on that. If you know anyone in the holiday farm fire area that needs a septic repair or replacement, please have them go to the website. Misty is also happy to talk through people. We have had some special exceptions for the rule that we've been able to do, which is case dependent. As far as our floodplain restoration, along with our wonderful partners, which included McKenzie Watershed Council, McKenzie River Trust, and the U.S. Forest Service, our floodplain restoration collaboration completed Forts Creek last summer. It's a 1.8 stream mile floodplain restoration project. This project, along with our other middle McKenzie projects, expect to have outcomes like we've talked about, those wonderful co-benefits, increasing fire resiliency, climate resiliency, infrastructure protection, high quality habitat for fisheries and wildlife, and restoring natural river and ecosystem function. We did have one acquisition last year, and that was in Gate Creek. And that's thanks to EWEB for funding that entire acquisition and for McKenzie River Trust for stewarding that property. For this property, we have a FEMA grant, which is a HMGP, which is the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. We're working on a feasibility study for the floodplain restoration projects there for both Gate Creek, and we also have a grant for Ennis Creek. Once we get that feasibility study done and to at least a 30% design, we're hoping to apply for the BRIC funding from FEMA. And so hopefully that would be next year. They did just release, they're going to do BRIC funding again. Yay. And so hopefully we can be applying for that one next year for doing implementation for those projects. Let's talk about funding now. So this is from 2021 to 2025. The Holiday Farm Fire, as a reminder, sunsets at the end of June this year. Note that the expenditures listed here are from the end of December of 2025. So these aren't into 2026. These are at the end of December. And also, as another note, we are going to come back to you in September and do kind of a wrap up of the rate fee, which will have more comprehensive and a deeper dive into that. We're going to work with finance on that. So we had four buckets of activities that were funded. We had the biggest one you can see is our risk-based investments. Those included erosion control, hazard tree removal, fuels reduction, planting native trees and shrubs, invasive treatment, and our landowner outreach, which was so important. We had the carbon sequestration, which was work at both High Banks and out at Quartz Creek for looking at the carbon sequestration on different kinds of property that are local to our area. We also had the land acquisition, which included strategic riparian acquisitions, including some smaller parcels, but also ones that did restoration, Rock, Lower Quartz, Ennis, and Gate. And then obviously the floodplain restoration we talked about as well, with projects like Rock, Quartz Creek, and then South Fork. There's been a handful of projects. It's been a wonderful source of funding to be able to get some great stuff done in there. Now looking specifically at 2025, when we look at these numbers, it looks like we have a huge net profit this year. And that's one of the things I wanted to know about. But this is actually how you all planned and agreed to do this. What we did is we front loaded a lot of this work. We used EWEB investments to front load the work that was going to be done. Plus, we were spending more energy and more of our resources at the beginning, right after the fire happened. And then we accrued reimbursement dollars back from grants, as well as leveraging funding through partners and bringing in the rate fee afterwards. So revenue includes things like from last year, the Holiday Farm Fire rate fee from customers. EWEB has for PWP operations and the Gate Creek acquisition. U.S. Forest Service had reimbursements as well for floodplain restoration projects for moving wood around. And for expenses, you can see we had 1.7 million for expenses this year, and that was less than any of our years so far. And that was like moving wood around. Again, we like to move wood all around for these projects. PWP ops, fuels reduction. We're working with both McKenzie Fire Rescue and with ODF and ODF to be able to do some fuels reduction projects in strategic neighborhoods up to McKenzie. And yeah, that's all. So thank you. This is a beautiful picture taken by David Donahue, who's here in our crowd today. What I want to note about this is he took this picture last year on February 6th, it says at the bottom. And so the things that are notable about this is just the way our climate is adjusting right now. He shouldn't have been, what he tells me is he shouldn't have been able to get to this part of the road because it should have been covered in snow. The trees should have been more covered in snow. And we're facing a similar condition this year as well. So that's why some of this monitoring is so important. That's why having these longer term data sets are great, all that kind of wonderful stuff. And I also just wanted to thank so much to our staff at EWEB. They've worked so hard on these issues, and as well as our external partners and our board and community for supporting this work. So what questions do you have for us? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll open up to Q. Mindy.
Thank you for that report, and it's really great to hear about what a healthy watershed we have and all the hard work that's being done up there. I have a question, the watershed recovery funding. So does that mean that we have about $1 million left over?
So that's something I actually am not ready to answer tonight, but I would love to answer when however we come back to you all in September. Okay. We have money that's out and we have money that's coming back in, and it's kind of a little bit in flux right now. And so that's something that we're going to work on, that wrap up. We also have expenditures. Like I said, that was only as of December 31st. The number kind of adjusts. We're working with Matthew and Aaron and those folks on this, but we'll have better numbers to you next time.
It's too early really to.
It's too early to tell. We also have placeholders for some items as well. For example, we worked with USGS on the gauges. We have some agreements with them that will have money out that we're kind of holding for now that we'll have to pay out after that time. We also have things like we have an easement with Campbell Global for that upper part of Quartz Creek where the restoration project is. So we're going to hold back some money as well to make sure that we can take care of that property. We have to make sure those trees are free to grow where we disturb the soil. Also, if someone comes by and dumps like a couch, we have to be able to help take care of it. So we're trying to have that.
And then I just have one other question about the Pure Water Partners program. Mm-hmm. And so I know that a lot of that has shifted to restoration after the fire. And so the opportunities going forward now that we're looking more about that riparian restoration, not so much like the acute like fire. Is there, I guess, what is the feeling of landowners up there or homeowners? Are people excited to get into that work? Is it going to have to like kind of start building again because our mission changed for a little bit?
I think we have people that would be ready to work with us. The problem right now is we don't have any implementation funds to be able to work on people's properties. So what we're doing right now is we're delivering resources to them. And we also do have our naturescaping program where you can go out and people can work to make your area more fire resilient with just your planting and how you design the area right around your home. So I know we've applied for some grants. Nancy worked really hard to apply for at least a couple grants recently. So we're trying to see what those come back as. Okay. But we're back to the world of where we have to apply for grants to be able to do the work because we don't just have the pot of money right now to be able to be on the landowner's property working.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Other questions or comments? Tim?
Yeah, thank you, President Brown. Great work with your team. You are all doing incredible things, and also a lot of your work is unnoticed, I think, by our community, which is a good thing because if they do notice that everything's falling apart. So thank you for staying on top of everything. And then in particular, I mean, as an individual commissioner, I think the very first few months I was with you, Susan, on Quartz Creek, and I got to see personally the before and after of that restoration project. And it's an incredible and beautiful example of how EWEB is engaging our community and really caring about how our environment is working and really just restoring all. It was just, it's one of my personal appreciations that I have as a commissioner. So thank you for your continued work in that, and you and your team. I wanted to just ask, and this is a question that I sort of come back to every now and then, but is there anything that you two want to specifically highlight or talk about, or something that you wish we are asking that you wish to answer?
I think just what I want to highlight for this, if I didn't already, is that this is a huge team effort. If we didn't have our community partners and our external colleagues that we worked with, this work wouldn't happen. We've had a lot of challenges with the federal changeover with staff, and we've had to reroute quite a lot. I think EWEB staff have done a tremendous job. We have some folks that are working on design now that the Forest Service used to do. That's been just an amazing benefit to have, and we already had those people in place. But that's definitely added a lot of challenges with the federal funding uncertainty and also with staffing availability, as I think folks are very aware of. Mike, you have anything to go?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd say no, Tim, because I think the board has consistently supported this work year after year and invested in it, has a pretty firm understanding of it, and is really good about bringing forth concerns, questions, so that we can stay ahead of it. So that answers your question.
Does. Yeah, thank you so much. And I look forward to the Willamette State of the Watershed coming up soon. So thank you for your work. I appreciate it.
And you also have a board float trip coming up on May 14th that we'll be taking you on as well.
Sold.
Yes.
John Borowski, any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Not so much questions, just comments. Thanks for all the hard work. A good clean report. I just wanted to put out there to the board and to the rest of the people how important EWEB is as far as a player and a partner with the other agencies upriver. Our nimbleness to be able to come in and be a funder or a bridge on some of these projects is so important to moving projects forward. Being able to be the agency that can shuttle the money through. You know, there's a lot of times you need a pass-through entity from some of the federal and other grants, and we've been very accommodating in that area. I know I sit on the McKenzie Watershed Council as a board member, and just the number of times that we interact with other agencies and how appreciative they are of us goes beyond what I can even say here. Susan can talk to that. But the work that we do upriver in areas that have to do directly with source water protection, but then finger out to so many other areas that the watershed is involved with, is just incredible. So I just want to say thank you and acknowledge the work that we're doing up there, and know that we're probably one of the best watersheds around. There's other ones, the Santiam, other watersheds that if if they had had an entity like EWEB, would have recovered much quicker than they are now. So thank you for your work.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Borowski. I think the way that EWEB was willing, the board was willing to front load. And also, I just wanted to do a tremendous shout out to folks like Deborah's people in finance and just across the organization, contracts and everything. We have these people that can help with that. And the fact that EWEB leads that work with that kind of staffing level and those amazing staff has put us far ahead of the restoration as a lot of other places. Like it's just an amazing asset that we have in this community. So thank you so much.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Good job. I mean, you've had a lot of challenges and other things with environmental changes around. I am a little bit curious, you know, since we are getting hounded on some other things out here. Can you talk a little bit about pesticides? You talked a little bit about the testing of them, but
yes,
yeah, can you just maybe elaborate on kind of the general trend with pesticides in the watershed area that feeds our EWEB water?
I might phone a friend on this one to David.
I might phone a friend on this one too. I know it's something that we definitely do track. That's one of the reasons why we try to gather those winter storms. We did have one in December that we didn't capture as much because we had logistics issues with. We don't always get everything, all the data that we want. We had logistics because it was a holiday. Our lab didn't have the capacity. We couldn't get it to contract labs. So we try to capture it all, but we don't. Do you have any overall trends about pesticides that you'd love to share? And maybe if you want to come up to the front table, is that okay? Is that all right? You step up there. Thank you, David. David Donahue is one of our wonderful staff in source protection that goes out in the middle of the night to do our monitoring and watches the storms with a.
Right. Interject on page 23, item 5. It talks about 13 pesticide detections and things. So just for reference.
Okay. Yes. Would you like to speak to that, please? Thank you.
Yeah, I would just probably give a bit of historical perspective too on our pesticide monitoring. So we've been looking at pesticides. I mean, it really got kicked off in probably 2004. And so we really tried to look at different parts of the watershed and really be aggressive with our pesticide monitoring, forestry, rural, urban. Obviously, the holiday farm fire kind of repositioned our approach to that, but we've always kind of been looking at pesticides that entire time. And we do get detections. There's no doubt about it. But our pesticide monitoring currently, usually we're looking at a spring event when we know that pesticides have been applied, and then, you know, runoff conditions and that first fall flush event. Sometimes a big storm event. But those two data points at either urban sites or upriver sites are really hard to trend on. We're really looking at it from the standpoint of like, are we getting detections consistently for a particular pesticide? Are any of those levels during these worst case scenarios, either a first fall flush or a spring event, are they exceeding any standards? So while we do get detections, and we kind of expect to get some detections, especially in our urban water interface, they're not very consistent. And we look at hundreds of organic compounds during these events. So if we start seeing that particular pesticide show up routinely, especially at a particular site, we're probably going to start looking at that site a little bit more closely to see if there is a pattern there and to see if we can determine, are things getting better or worse. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. There are some of the more commonly used pesticides. It's not surprising to see low level detections, but all of the pesticide detections we've had are pretty low level.
Can you give a sense of the scale of the pesticide detection versus like the regulatory limit?
Oh goodness, I'm gonna have to call Karen on that one. But for instance, glyphosate, which is something that we look at routinely. Now, Karen, you might have to back me up on this, but I want to say the drinking water standard is probably 700 micrograms. It's high. We would typically see like 1, maybe 2 micrograms per liter. So pretty low levels, well below any drinking water standard. However, we know that we see people applying. We know that there are actually organizations that are applying glyphosate. So we know it's being used in the system. And that's why we kind of target those worst case scenarios when we expect those concentrations at runoff to be collecting whatever pesticide applications there were, and to see what does that worst case scenario look like.
And
And
so
we're
the worst
fortunate.
case scenario is like that 1 versus 700 range.
Yeah,
Is that,
I hope I'm not off by
it's not,
order
yeah.
of magnitude, 70 or 700.
Actually, let me,
700.
but also let's keep in mind, so that is the drinking water standard. That's not what's hitting our raw water.
That's what's, that's the intake.
So no, but not really there.
No.
That's not where we're finding it,
Yeah,
McKenzie.
these
No.
aren't
Yeah,
these
hold
aren't
on.
main stem McKenzie. Tributaries, urban stormwater
Yeah.
channels, those places where, in the urban interface, you expect to see, low level.
So what we would use to compare to that is like the recreational drinking water standards. Like if you were there with your family swimming in the water, those are the recreational standards. Those are much higher than the drinking water standards. So drinking water standards would be what's coming out of the treatment plant. So not like, that's not the raw water. That's not what's going into the treatment plant at all. So we're not normally finding detectable levels of what's going into the treatment plant, I don't think, correct?
No, and that's why we're really fortunate in the McKenzie, because we have this amazing source that dilutes a lot of your urban inputs. So it's very rare that we would see anything in the main stem.
I know Karen has a thing. Sorry, I was trying to cover the comment from you. So go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to weigh in. So when you're sampling drinking water, the finished drinking water, the requirement is once every 3 years. So you can imagine that people might be concerned, well, it's fine every 3 years, but what is it like the rest of the time? So we look at what's the worst case scenario out in the environment. So checking it in multiple locations throughout the watershed, we're seeing very, very low levels under worst case scenarios. And at our intake, we're finding nothing. But it's important for us to keep a lookout for it, see if something's changing. We can respond to that before it gets to our treatment plant in those cases. So that's really the purpose of the monitoring that the team does. And then the response would be, can we prevent it from getting into the water at all if it does become levels of concern? And how would we go about that?
So we're monitoring it at the worst case scenario up river, and then also periodically throughout the year, even though the regulation says once every 3 years, we're regularly monitoring it when we would expect to see it in there. We're not cherry picking times. We're like, well, we know it won't be here. We'll pick this out. I mean, we're actively looking for it for when it's the worst case scenario, because we're a public utility and we care about the water that we all drink. Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And just to reiterate, there's no requirement to sample the raw water in the watershed. We preemptively do that because we're concerned. We want to make sure that, for ratepayers and for public health both, it's less expensive for us to keep an eye on it and respond to it out in the environment than it is to add additional treatment to the water plant to take care of all situations.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'll go last. When I started, I thought, gosh, I'm going to call on Sonia, and there was 22 minutes left. I thought, okay, now I got 20 minutes. But anyhow, I won't do that to you. I have 1,000 questions, and I'll follow up with them, but some general questions. And that's that I continue to hear we're monitoring, but we're not doing anything about it. And the majority of the problems are down low. We just spent $17 million up above, and we're not spending any money down low unless I'm missing something. And down low is where the problems are based on this report. And how are we going to change the behavior of the Springfield residents to stop putting stuff in the storm system that's threatening our drinking water? That's my big macro question. And sometimes I guess I have to take a radical approach to get a moderate response. But I want to know what we are going to do to change that behavior, if anything. Because I said, I look at all the detects, every one of them, and it's all down low. It's all the 42nd, 52nd, and all the stormwater, and they're done. And I assume that Springfield's new drinking water intake is above all these outflows. And because, you know, we're not getting any help there, but I'm getting kind of a little bit radical on this because I want to see something done about the pollution or the increased problems that we have down low. You see, even when you talked about the pesticides, if you look at that, they're all coming in down in the stormwater. They're not coming in above where the forest is. It's the people down low that are doing it. And it's the stormwater system that's, to me, is the biggest threat. I mean, the pentaplume, I'm glad that that's not much of a threat anymore, but how can we get to we're monitoring to what we're dealing with it? What's it going to take to make that move in the lower watershed to help protect it?
I would love to address this issue, and I had no idea you would ask such a question. I mean, yes, I knew you would ask this one, and I would love to talk about this. Part of what my department's been doing is we've been focusing on holiday farm fire recovery, and I've heard that the next thing that we're going to be working on is the urban area. We went out as a board a couple years ago to look at that area and see what priorities were. We've already been developing and working on collaborations with folks for this. We participate in a wonderful collaboration that includes Lane County, City of Eugene, City of Springfield, SUB, EWEB, as well as a handful of nonprofits called the Urban Water Partnership, or Water Partners Urban Water Program, one of those lovely acronyms, which is escaping me right now, but UWP, and that's run through the Longtom Watershed Council. And that works with business owners that need to reduce their stormwater runoff. We're working on a project that's literally the property just upstream of the Hayden Bridge intake on that. That one's going to be, I think we toured that one a couple years ago. That one's going to be implemented this summer. As we all know, permitting takes a while, as does that. So those are some of the things that we're working on right now. I also think of it for the stormwater. Yes, we do need less contaminants in there, obviously, but also some of the things when David's sampling, you know, we're talking about amount of water that's like this much water. So one of the things that we do have is those things do dilute once they go into the McKenzie. And while we do want them less, by the time they move their way through wetlands and things like that, or they move their way into the McKenzie, we're finding no detects with the water that's coming to the intake. We're also working with International Paper. We're hoping that they're working on some improvement projects that we could overlap with to do, hopefully work on some increased wetland in Kaiser Slough area. That's something that I'm hoping to turn my attention to now that we're wrapping up the holiday farm firework this year. So I'm excited and eager to make that shift as well and to really start working on those relationships and trying to see where we can have the best benefit. As I did say throughout the presentation today, David and our staff have a wonderful relationship with the City of Springfield, with the Environmental Services Division. We coordinate closely on that. And so we have that feedback. We also work on a lot of different projects with SUB as well. So, you know, it's great to have those partnerships and we hope to help maximize those. The grant funding right now is a little challenging, as we talked about too, with some of the federal funding uncertainty. That makes implementing these larger projects, which keep costing more and more, makes it more challenging. So the fact that we had this guaranteed funding from EWEB that could leverage and expand that funding so much all these years has been a wonderful benefit. So hopefully we can find some other creative ways to fund these sources too. Mike, do you have anything you'd like to add about what we're working on the urban? It's definitely my directive from both Karen and Mike that we are switching to urban once we wrap up Holiday Farm Fire.
I just think to restate and back to the pesticide thought, if David's measuring the 2 parts per million versus the 700, that's in a concentrated tributary or stormwater channel before it's then put into the main stem McKenzie, but diluted significantly. And I don't mean to underplay our desire to keep those contaminants out, but it'd be a different story if we were getting those detections in the main stem even, I think. And, talking with Susan and reading the report, some of the stuff that we feel like those are big wins with the sewer improvements they've made and seeing the numbers go down there. So I do feel like progress is happening, and I know communication is happening. And I think we're all looking forward to kind of prioritizing some more of that. We've got potential investment opportunities with Rice Farms, with Upper Willamette Soil and Water Conservation District right there coming up. So all of those things. But yes, we want to keep that stuff out too. And I think it's a matter that the only way to do that is through partnership and communication. And it's just a gradual process. I think I don't know that we don't have the enforcement arm to force any of that, right? So we have to encourage and get buy-in and kind of create that change. And it's just a long process. That would be my perspective on it.
Then my last question is that, last year we toured 42nd Street breach area and we saw that there's erosion. We're losing at least 20 to 30 feet of bank every year. It's migrating, it's going to take over and it's going to flood Springfield if somebody doesn't do something about it. But that's also where the PCP plume is going. And so with the river migrating 20 to 30 feet a year towards 42nd Street into the plume area, is there a risk of that plume, the dynamic of that PCP plume getting into the watershed from the migration of the river and the groundwater?
I'm unsure about that one. I did not check in with City of Springfield, their emergency folks. They were the ones who were working with the Corps of Engineer on the design element, trying to work on improving that levee, as well as potentially helping keep the river from continuing to move over. And we did have that update last year. I have not checked in with them recently. They're supposed to start doing some stakeholder engagement with select partners. I think it was supposed to be this winter, and it's a great reminder that I've not heard back from them yet. So I'm guessing with some of the federal staffing switch up, that might have adjusted. So I'll check back in with that about it. Yeah, I definitely want to check in on that.
I really appreciate that, just to find out if that migration is it's continuing. I know it is, but more importantly, is it increasing the risk of the PCP plume in the river? So
I'll have to check on that. Also, one of the things I wanted to mention is you're like, how do we talk to our people like about putting less things in these systems potentially? How do we get people to clean up and do a little bit better? I would say that our communications folks, we work with Adam Spencer here. And one of the things I know anytime I'm sitting in a collaborative meeting is if we need to elevate somebody's messaging around, we have this cleanup thing available or pollute less or whatever it is, I know that I can hand that off to our communications team and then they'll help elevate that messaging, either if it's through like the Watershed Wednesdays that he's been doing or through our monthly newsletter that goes out to customers. But it's been really nice to have that as a resource at EWEB to help elevate the messaging. So that way it takes, if we have one Watershed Council with that messaging, we can help spread it out to all of our customers as well. So I've just found that's been such a great benefit to reach a lot of different kinds of people.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else from anybody else to go to the order? Well, I'd just like to close with thank you. As you know, this is near and dear to my heart, and thank you very much. And I know that I sometimes come off a little harsh, but like I say, sometimes you have to take a radical approach to get a moderate response. But I know that your response is going to be the best you give, so I appreciate it. I'm going to look forward to the updates.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you holding us accountable and also supporting us for this great work for our community. Thank you.
You'll never run out of money. Thank you.
Hey.
Thank
you, Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. Okay. It's break time.
It's not me.
Thank you. We'll come back in 10 minutes. Annual performance evaluation and merit compensation discussion. Okay, I'm going to take this lead. So, as you all know, we all met in executive session with the general manager and discussed him. And then the function today is we're going to summarize a review of prior year performance and deliberate on whether or not to approve or not approve merit award based upon the general manager's performance. So, anybody like to jump in and comment on Frank's performance over the last year? What your comments were or anything? Anybody want to start? John Brodsky, I know that you've got your mouth full of food, so.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would just like to say kind of what John just said. We did meet, we discussed it. I think that Frank has done an exemplary job of leading the organization, not only over this year, but over the tenure of his, or at least over the tenure that I've been overseeing him for the last 5.5 years. I think he is handling the transition to the new general manager well, and when it becomes time, I would be honored to put a motion forward for compensation.
Okay, thank you. Other comments from other commissioners? Mindy.
I just want to note that the way that this process worked, maybe I already said this, but that there was a confidential survey that was sent out to various employees that gathered feedback with engagement skills, strategic skills, and then there were narrative responses to how people thought Frank did. So this wasn't us just sitting around in a room saying, so how do you think Frank did? So anyway, it was very strong all around, which is not surprising. And I think that over the 10 years, that's what you've been here, 10 years?
In this position.
Yeah, in this position. Just seeing the growth that you've led EWEB through is really admirable, and it is reflected in the surveys that we received, the feedback that we received about you.
Mr. Morris.
Yeah, thank you, President Brown. Yeah, I'll just reiterate what I shared in that meeting of I'm the newest commissioner, so I've had the shortest amount of time working with you. But from my perspective and talking with just you and the staff and executive staff, that there's been an intentional diversification of perspective, particularly career-based perspective of it's not just full of, our whole team is not just engineers all the way down, but now it's folks who have different ideas, different backgrounds, different goals, different intentions. And that's been successful. So, and I think that that's just reflected back to you as the general manager. I think you reflect what the direction of the organization is. And so that from my perspective is really appreciated and I think the right direction for this organization. So thank you.
Mr. Carlson.
Well, I mean, I spoke for quite a while earlier reading somebody else's words, but I did note when I accepted the award on your behalf that I'm going to particularly miss your wonderful metaphors. I think that they are very strong and help highlight this work is really complicated, and sometimes we need things to just put it into perspective. And I constantly appreciate your ability to take really complex topics and help your staff also be able to take something that they're very deeply embedded in and make it so that we as lay people can actually feel good about decisions that we make. It's really challenging because we don't live in this. We get a 250-page to 600-page packet that we have a week to read, and then have to get up here and make decisions that are sometimes, multi-million, hundreds of millions of dollars. And so, the fact that you have led a team and in spite of the fact that I don't know. I mean, in spite of the fact that I'm going to miss you and your leadership, I also feel really good about where we're at as an organization and the team that you've built and the people that are supporting you. I think will just help float the transition through. And that speaks volumes to both you and the staff that you've helped cultivate and saw, wonderful talent in them and helped them come up and thrive. And that's what a good leader is building a strong team around them. You're not always the smartest person in the room. You're not always the person that is, taking everything on. I mean, you can't do that with an organization of this size. And so, to that end, kudos. I appreciate what you do. And anyway, going to miss you. But to that end, I'll leave it to those to talk about compensation.
I got a lot of things I can say, but I'll probably save them for the last meeting. But I appreciate your frankness. So just a little metaphor there. But seriously, where you can take 5 lay people and that have varying backgrounds, but none of them in the expertise of what this organization does, and get us to where we can make decisions and provide input and give us that level of background is amazing. And I think it's a skill set that's unique, and I really appreciate your approachability. That you kind of put your pants on one leg at a time. You're not above us and you're not below us. You're equal to us, and I appreciate that. And for me, I'm going to hate to see you go, and I'll cry at the next meeting, but not this one. So I'm going to do, if somebody wants to make.
I get to say anything?
You got to remember, I've got the gavel, you don't, Frank, so.
All right.
You're still an employee, right?
Yeah.
No, if you'd like to say something, go ahead.
I'd just like to, I would like to say a few things. So first of all, I think Mindy described a little bit of the process, but I've always felt like a big part of the general manager's performance is the performance of staff and performance of the board. I have always been really appreciative of the board and staff, and in particular the group of people that I work with on a daily basis. It's interesting because it's not the best collection of individuals. I think this is kind of where Commissioner Morris was going. It's not always the collection of the best individuals. It's the best team that you put together. And so each and every person brings something different. It's complementary. It's confrontational at times. You get some good debates, but that's how you get better. And I'm really proud of the team that we have, and that we have had a number of individuals. If you look around the region, are people who have at one point or another passed through EWEB in the development of their career, and so I really appreciate that. I will say I think there's some challenges that we're facing. I feel confident in the organization. Since it is my review, I'll say one thing. That was a question that I was asked in my original interview, which was what I thought the biggest challenge was for the utility. And my response was, we have too many good choices. And we have too many good choices in an environment that hasn't been forced to make a lot of choices, which is the utility industry. If you had one good choice and a bunch of bad ones, that would be easy. Or in the case of Lieberg, they were all bad, right, Commissioner Carlson? But I think that when you're successful as an organization, the challenge is going to be people are going to want more and more and more from EWEB. And I think the challenge is going to be to really focus the organization and not try to become everything for everybody. And that's going to be a real challenge for us, because it's a complement in many ways. But I look at my performance is based on the organization and the board. So thank you.
About compensation, John B.
Thank
John
you.
B, go ahead.
I would like to make a motion to give the general manager, Frank Lawson, a 2.5% merit compensation bonus for the previous year's work of service. There's a second, I can talk to it.
And so just point of clarification, that's 2.5% of his base salary, correct?
Correct, at one time, not an ongoing.
Not a cumulative, okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, it carries unanimously. And Deidre, you got what you need from us about the economics of that?
Yep, I got
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so next agenda item is the City of Eugene Liaison report. Sonia and I met with the city leadership on April 1st. Every day, and we had a really good long discussion. Actually, went over our time, which is rare. Usually we get you get yarded out of there 10 minutes before it's over, but we stayed over. It was a fun discussion. And Sonia, you want to take it off and I'll finish it up?
I mean, there was some discussion about, what we're interest in the, on their side, interest in what we're doing with smart meters, how that's helping the utility, what that's leading to in terms of, demand response, climate change response, connections there. Because, I like us, they get similar questions. So there was some, time for education. We talked about the fire hydrant transition and a little bit around that and what their interests are, what we're researching, and some of the, I think the, compensation and backlog of deferred maintenance that revolves around that. Chime in some other, those were some of the big items that we spent a decent chunk of time on.
Basically, they didn't, when I posed a question to council leadership and the mayor, I said, well, what do you want from us? I mean, what would you like us to do? I mean, you ask us, but we did 90% of the talking. And they just said, basically, we would like more collaboration on CRO2 and things like that. And I don't know how to read that. We've done everything we said we were going to do. And as far as if it's an economic ask, I mean, that's going to be a pretty big lift, but that wasn't what was said. It was just more communication and more communication in that context. And so we'll get more on that, but there wasn't anything specifically they talked about. I mean, to elaborate a little bit more on the fire hydrants, we said, there could be upwards of $2 million in deferred maintenance, and that's just a rate adjustment for us. We have to factor that into all our other rate adjustments. Our second source, we talked about our second source and we thanked them for their support on the land use approvals and things such as that, and going forward with that. And then the importance of having that done, and intergovernmental agreements with Springfield on things such as that. But generally speaking, that was about it. Frank, do you have anything else to say about what we talked about?
I think the comments around the smart meters were an opportunity for us to share that a smart meter is one of the building blocks necessary to do some of the really beneficial programs around demand response, time of use, some of these puzzle pieces that will both have an overall efficiency to them, but also ultimately, if you're using power when it's the cleanest and not the dirtiest, there's positive overall climate impacts there. And so it was an opportunity to kind of go through that and talk a little bit about the puzzle pieces. They did talk about collaboration on the climate action plan. And I know that and that may be an issue of really leadership, not understanding all of what staff is doing. We do collaborate. Our information that's covered in the climate action, our climate plan, our climate guidebook specifically, we're getting ready to release version 4.0 with updated information in that. That is aligned specifically with what the city needs to put into their climate action plan. And so staff is collaborating on things like that, and it's in a particular format to work with the city. So I think that there's just some awareness within different levels of organization of how that's working. So I think we are both in the upcoming years going to continue to see some economic pressures. We know that the city has some economic challenges in their budget gap. We also have a number of indicators relative to some of the large projects that we have that will see continued upward pressure on rates, given some of the things that we're seeing external to the organization. And so it's an opportunity to share that, as well as some of the specifics around fire hydrants, which our staff members are working on some proposals for.
Well, we did two other things that we talked about: the opt-out fee that we're going to have, and we anticipate that that could be significant for some, and we probably have some public input about that. And also we talked about Clear Lake. The city's has $11.1 million for infrastructure, and that includes water and sewer, but we have to provide electricity. So we said, well, if we're going to have that discussion, let's have that discussion, because we can't just spend millions and millions of dollars and have no revenue. And Frank also reiterated that, it's if we put big water lines out there and we don't serve anybody, then water becomes stagnant. Then what happens? And so, because there's a lot of hurdles to get Clear Lake into the development ready. There's tons of wetlands and a lot of other challenges out there to make that happen. But that's something that they've got some infrastructure funding for, but we need to collaborate better on communicating. We just made sure that they were aware of that. So other than that, I can't think of anything else we talked about.
Did you all talk about bonding? It seemed like you were talking about bonding capacity when I got there. Is that, no? Okay.
No, I mean, we just talked about second source and how much it may cost.
that
We
was
were
okay.
talking
Well,
about some of the financial hurdles we had. We had Leeburg, potentially Walterville. We've got the lawsuit. We've got second source. We've got lots of infrastructure needs. And so impending, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of costs that we have to figure out how we're going to pay for. So
I think the other thing that we mentioned in that part of the conversation was the reason why we're seeing higher capital investments, specifically on the electric side, over the next 10 to 15 years. And that's because of Eugene's growth in the 60s and 70s, and all of that build out that EWEB went through in the 60s and 70s is now simultaneously aging and should be retired. I'd like to use that expression. But we have a pretty significant load of just, I'll say, routine infrastructure replacement on the electric side. And we're really kind of in the initial sort of first 20% of that large investment. So all of those have pressures on the organization and take staff capacity as well. So when we want to evaluate that versus work that would be specifically geared toward economic development, we have to look at it on an opportunity cost as well as a payback cost, a payback perspective.
Okay, Tim.
Thank you, President Brown. So I know the city of Eugene has a few climate related topics coming up in the summer. Were there any conversations from them of the home energy score, utility right of way ordinance that they've been working on? Got it.
No, I specifically asked, I said, what do you want from us? What do you want to tell us or anything?
Crickets. Got it.
Those specifics, trust me. We tried.
Got it. Okay. Just wanted to check in and confirm. The second thing, we both agencies have a new incoming manager, general manager, city manager. Are there any changes of approach? Is there any new conversation, any difference of how we're operating currently to what we might be doing 2 months from now as new managers step in?
I wouldn't anticipate it'll be a learning curve for the new city manager as it will for our general manager. And we also have to understand that, it's the same dynamic with, I've been trying to create a little bit more of a liaison with Springfield Utility Board. We've met with them once in 20 years, and we're going to get a new general manager at both utilities, and maybe it's time to see if we can meet twice in 20 years. And so, so there's going to be all that kind of, everybody's going to have to learn who they are and what they are, but they're going to have to learn their own, stay in their own kind of areas until they get a little bit more attuned about what's going on. I think to try and take on an understanding of EWEB's operations and the city at the same time would probably be a bit overwhelming.
Thank you.
Anything else? Well, if not, then we're going to go to John B. Sorry, buddy. Go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you for your work, you guys, meeting with those people. One of the things that I would hope that we can lean into in the upcoming, I don't know when the next one is scheduled for,
quarterly,
but I think that something that would be advantageous to both organizations is trying to get aligned with the legislative agendas that will be coming up for the next legislative, next year. I think that there's going to be some things. Hopefully, there'll be some work on. I'm going to just call it. I don't know what they'll call it these days, but the cap and trade, and maybe figuring out a way that we can have it so that Washington, Oregon, California all kind of are the same thing there, but working together to align our legislative agendas as much as possible to have a stronger voice in Salem on some of the issues that affect the CRO and some of our issues, and leading into that early on so that their lobbyists and Jason and everybody, we can be a united front up there on some of the issues that are important to all of us. So I think that would be something that I would want to put on the agenda for the next one so that we're ahead of the game, not waiting until next April, May, June to kind of figure out what those priorities.
Thank you. We'll make sure we do that. Appreciate it. Anything else? He just froze. Uh-oh. You're good? Okay, good. All right. Well, thank you. Well, that just to conclude that agenda item. Now we'll go to future board agendas. Right.
This is a process that's just constantly updated. I think every time you see it, it probably moves around just a little bit. We've got some things coming up relative to drinking water, and specifically in July, and then again in September, along with some of our standard items. We also added something in November related to some and accelerated a couple of things into this year. And I'll give you an example. We wanted to, as we go through our goals for 2027, actually work with this board on developing what those goals are. And some of that relates to the 5-year themes, a little bit more strategic view of that, doing that as well as policy review, as opposed to asking a new commissioner to come in and deal with policies that this board has been working with for a while. So there's a few things such as your policy review we pushed into November and December instead of January to leverage all of your knowledge and expertise. So just a few things like that we've moved around, but in general, and then we have a raft trip coming up on May 14th, I believe, where it's an opportunity for the new general manager to see the river and meet various people, typically your contacts and local government officials. So that's an upcoming opportunity.
What section of river have you decided to float?
It's a good question. I'm not floating it, actually, if you want, unless you throw me in the river for some reason. No, we're still, what, Ann, do you know?
Susan Fricky is working with Helfrich, and it's just about finalized. I don't see that she's still here, so I'll try and get an email out to you later this week with that itinerary.
Coming soon.
Thank you. Okay, anything else? Okay, well then board wrap up. I'll start with Mindy.
Just want to acknowledge that this is your penultimate meeting, Frank.
This is my what?
Penultimate meeting. Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah. Anyway, and my question is, will John Hairston be at our next meeting, or is he not interested?
I don't believe so. I believe he is starting officially on the following Monday, the 11th.
Okay.
And so I would not expect him to be at the board meeting.
Okay.
Although when I see him next week, I'll ask him for sure. He might tune into it.
Okay,
But
he
I
won't be here.
I don't think he will be here.
Yep, that's it.
Thank you, President Brown. I teed myself up at the beginning with correspondence to talk about a future board agenda that I'm hoping to have added. But this is the impetus of this is from the UL boiler project conversation. But I think what I'm hoping to have is a backgrounder, I think, in how EWEB is working with other entities or agencies on who have climate recovery goals or climate ordinances, things that they're trying to attempt to do. So I'm thinking, the city of Eugene is one in particular that have said that they may not meet their climate recovery goal in 2030, but also how are we coordinator working with 4J and Bethel school districts that have climate recovery goals as well, or Lane County, things along those lines. So I'm hoping to see a head nod, if that is possible, for my colleagues of a future board agenda of a backgrounder of how we're working with entities that have climate goals as well.
I have a question. Wouldn't that information be contained in our? Yeah.
Yeah, I will double check with, I'll just double check on that with Kelly Hale, who's the climate advisor on that. Typically, it has shared information that is designed to be useful to other agencies or reference to other agencies, and then in some cases it does mention specifically what we're doing. We are oftentimes we're supplying information and resources, recognizing that it's their goals, it's not our goals, but it should summarize to a certain extent what that is. I do believe that's correspondence scheduled for May. And so there could be some additional time around that correspondence to have some additional discussion and questions.
Don't we have an agenda item in May with Kelly?
Is it an actual agenda item?
Yes.
I believe it's correspondence.
Okay. We can do it a couple of ways, Commissioner. I'll either, depending on the content of that and whether it meets Commissioner Morris's request, we can either look to shift some into agenda time, or we can just have it as correspondence with additional time for Q&A, since that's where a lot of the discussion comes in.
We've got time remaining on the agenda, and so maybe, I'm trying to figure out where we can check your box and make sure that we don't put something on there that we already have. Is it a consensus with the group that if there's not sufficient information in the existing documents and everything to meet your expectations, and we could put a placeholder for maybe 15 minutes and just have staff try to explain that? Because I do know we have been coordinating. I mean, we did a solar project, Howard Elementary, with 4J, and then we had to take it out. And we've been working with them.
If it's information that's readily available in the climate guidebook, then I would say it's probably appropriate to do something in May, and we could do it as an agenda item. If not, I don't know how much staff, I don't think May would be practical. I think we'd have to get back to you on exactly how long it'll take and what kind of information we can pull together.
We've got May time in June too.
Okay.
So if that works for you, Tim?
That does work for me. Just to be abundantly transparent as well, my goal is also to have information ready for our new incoming general manager as well. I know that we're going to very likely go over that as well, but that we are an integrated part of our community and integrated part of other organizations as well. And just having that on our agenda, I think will really spell that out.
Good point. So our new general manager will not be here in May. They're not paying attention, but if it's important that feel like they get that update and that connection, it might be worth moving it to June. I don't know. That's just a thought that came to mind as you were noting that. That's the ultimate goal.
It's one outcome I'm hoping for, but not the ultimate. Yeah, thank you.
I think it'll depend on what information specifically is in there around the request, and whether that's more likely in May or June. We could actually do a correspondence in May and a discussion in June. I mean, there's a number of different ways that we can couch this to meet the objective, I think.
Good. All right, Sonia. John B2.
Nothing for me. Thank you for everybody.
Well, thank you for accommodating us from the other side of the continent. So.
Yeah. It's only 11:20.
Yeah, I know. All right. Well, and I have nothing, but other than that, then we'll adjourn the meeting and see you in a month. Thank you.
Do you ever buy me dinner?